Okay, it looks like I am live. Let me know whether you can hear or see or whatever me. I'm just going to get the light on, so just give me a sec. The light, for some reason, doesn't like my battery, my power bank. There we go, lights. How is everybody? Doing fine here. Is anybody here? We've got 9 people, so let me know you're here. Let me know if you can hear or see me. Put the chewing gum down. So it's early here. It's dark this time of year at 7 a.m. Daylight saving ends for us in a couple of days. And so it's going to get lighter in the mornings and darker in the evenings and all that kind of jazz for us. But everything's both hunky and dory here. So anybody, oh, hello, there we go. D. Lee, it's that time again. Yes, it is. Overture curtain lights. It is time again. So can everybody hear me? That's the important question. There's only 4 people here. What the 7 now? Come on, ramp it up. Dick says just been waiting for the ads to finish. Have you and Sal okay? Yeah, Sal's sleeping at the moment. She may get up, but she's sleeping at the moment. We're doing fine. Hi, DB Cooper. Hi, Peter. How you doing? So everything is Archie from that. DB Cooper can hear me. Peter can hear me. Everything's fine. It's been a week. It's actually been a couple of weeks, but it's been unusual. Remember last time I did the live stream from my laptop because the big donk computer wasn't working. Well, I actually sold some things and got some money together to get a computer repair done. And the weird thing is, I took the computer into the dining room, which is a better space for somebody to do computer stuff. And I had a computer technician booked to fix it all up. And I plugged it all in and turned it on, ready for this person to come out and work magic with the computer and fix it. And the fucking computer works. It works perfectly. So I canceled the booking. Fortunately, they didn't charge me anything for it. And the big donk computer's working. I've done a clean install of everything. It's running lean and mean, but it was a pain in the ass because the computer problem fixed itself when I moved the mouse and the keyboard to a different port. Hi, for sale. D. Lee says sleeping is a sensible move. Yeah, I know. I haven't done enough of it to myself, but I have had 2 coffees. Does that count? So yeah, the computer thing has fixed itself up. All good. We will just see what happens. So yeah, so that's the first bit of news. Because glad I got everything up and running. Yeah, it's running beautifully. It's purring like a kitten. Have not got a problem with it at the moment. But I am aware that I've got to back things up a lot more than I do. I have a lot of little things like the Jazz Alien for Science Fiction Saturday and all that kind of thing. All of that stuff is backed up, but a lot of things weren't. So if there's a slightly different look to the channel as we move along, particularly the little interstitial bits that I put in, that's the reason why. When I did the fresh install, it's slightly different. Ralph says good news for sure. Yeah, it is because this is my business. My business is in a box, essentially, and so having that functioning is really a relief. Peter says technology can't live with it, can't live without it. I don't mind technology. I mean, I've had computers since the first computer I ever used had a cassette drive to load programs, and it took like 5 minutes to load a game of Hangman. I've been using computers since those days, and I like them. I mean, I've always had, from as early as I could, I've always had computers. My first computer was an Apple II clone from Taiwan that a friend of mine helped me buy, which had 2 physical media drives, like basically, floppy disks, that big drives, and one ran the operating system, the other one you did everything else on. And then I moved on from there. I had Amigas, I had PC clones. I had all sorts of things. I had one of them stolen. I had a house break-in way back in the early 90s where my computer and monitor got stolen. That was tragic. But I've been using them ever since, and I'm kind of accustomed to the fact that things go wrong with computers. D. Lee says, I love when things fix themselves after you call the repairer. Yeah, but I think that the repair people are very good at being aware of that. And the company I've got is a reputable one. And if anything does go wrong, they're the people I'm going to go to. They treated me very nicely. They agreed not to charge a fee for cancellation, even though they were legitimately entitled to under the contract I agreed to. But it is how it is. Hi, FG. How you doing? So all of that worked. So the universe unraveled itself. That meant that I had a little bit of money. I was talking it over with Sal, and I said, listen, I've got this money that was supposed to be for computer repairs. What am I going to do with it? We did pay off some things. We renewed the post office box, all of that kind of gear. But I did do some pickups. Not many. I just got a few pickups. But do people want to see my pickups that I got? Patrick, hi, Terry. I've been building, repairing PCs since 82. Always either a fun problem or a massive pain in the ass. Yeah, it is. And I'm kind of aware of that. You always feel gutted when it happens too, because so much of what you do is to do with PCs. And I've got a ton of old laptops. Fortunately, I've got that one that I used while I thought the PC wasn't functioning, which is powerful enough for me to do the video editing on, even though it does edit a lot slower. Particularly the rendering is a lot slower on that. But, things are what they are. I've got a couple of little things. I've got a Chromebook that I use for making notes on if I'm away somewhere and I want to make some notes. I've got a Chromebook I use for that. Dick says, yes, please, but an ad heard the last word, pickups. Yeah, so I've got a few pickups. Not many, but I got a few because money's a bit tight at the moment. I did say I was going to pick this up, so I ordered it. I pre-ordered it before it came out. And it's a recommend from me. When the other movie this movie maker made in 2025 comes out, I'm getting that as well. I've got a copy of Nouvelle Vague, Richard Linklater's movie about the making of Breathless. Really cool film. If you're into French New Wave stuff, Nouvelle Vague's definitely one you've got to get. Doesn't have special. It's got special feature and the trailer, so it's not replete with special features. The inside's pretty much the same, but I like this movie so much that hi Renee Chambara, Nouvelle Vague is brilliant, absolutely. And I've got this when Blue Moon comes out. Richard Linklater's other film from 2025 comes out on Blu-ray. I'm going to pick that up as well. But that one really hits for me. The problem is now, do I put it on the shelf next to Breathless or do I put it under N? I've got a little bit of a kind of qualms about, am I going to do one way or the other? But that one, hell of a recommend. Really, really works for me. And I love it so much. And I've got a physical copy of it. Vision put it out. So the parent company of Imprint put it out. Renee Chambara said, I watched it back to back with Breathless. That's what I did too. I watched Breathless first. And then I watched this. And it was a very, very satisfying experience. So I got that. Let me have another sip of water. Now, I got a sequel to another movie too. Hi, Deb. How's it going? It's overcast and a little bit chilly in Nipaluna. It's a little bit chilly here too. It's 10 degrees here as well, Deb. I've got a movie that I've got the original movie on DVD because it only came out on DVD in Australia. But I got the sequel on 4K because I got a deal. Sisu, Road to Revenge, starring the wonderful Jorma Tomila. Fantastic movie, this one. Loved it. Loved the way the protagonist did things. Taking on two 1946 Russian fighter planes with a truck loaded up with wood is amazing. This one really goes to town. As I said on social media, it makes Rambo look like Shirley Temple. Really fun movie, over the top. Special effects work, even though they're not perfect. But incredible imaginative action film, this one. And I love it. And it's got this great ending. I'm not going to spoil the ending for you. But the ending of Sisu Road to Revenge is incredibly satisfying. It's like, yeah, this is the Grace Note. This is exactly where you want this character to land in the sequel. It is really, really great. Love it. Fantastic film. Enjoyed it on 4K. Had a good time with it. Renaissance Chambara says, love the printed background cloth you got. Reminds me of my old neighborhood in Hong Kong. The Finnish Winter War was so insane, so Sisu has rich material to draw on. Yeah, absolutely. And it works. I mean, the visual storytelling is there because there's not a lot of dialogue from the protagonist, if any. But there is a lot from the antagonist played by Stephen Lang. But most of it is purely visual storytelling, and it's purely visual action storytelling. And it works incredibly well at that level. For Sale says, I had a similar experience when my desktop computer broke down. Took it to the local computer repair shop and got it back the next day. Runs like new. That's a satisfying conclusion. That's a really good result. Deb says, we saw the trailer for Sisu Road to Revenge. I'd like to see the original first. I've heard it's better than RTR. Yeah, it is great. It is one of those action films, totally different milieu, totally different time and place, totally different cultural perspective, but it works. It's accessible, even though you've got a little bit of a learning curve when it comes to the cultural perspective. But the Sisu movies are just so satisfying, and the bad guys are the bad guys. Rosis Jambara says, having worked with Finns, the lack of dialogue felt real. They tend to be pretty humble and matter of fact. Yeah, which is the way to go. Absolutely. And from what I understand, the movies are very culturally grounded. And I like that. I like people telling me who their culture is. And that just works. It's inclusive. It's one of those things where you understand the perspective of the characters because the movie takes you by the hand and walks you to that. Then I haven't watched this yet, but I'm going to. Rachel Chambara says, another great Finnish film, Rare Exports. Yeah, I've got Rare Exports. It's fun. It is really, really fun. I did pick up on 4K Yorgos Lanthimos, Begonia. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to hopefully enjoy it. It's on 4K. Again, I got the deal with the two. Any extras on this? Bonus features the birth and the bees of making a Begonia. Interview with Emma Stone, Jess Plemons, and the rest of the cast and crew. Behind the scenes footage, featurette, sets, music, and cinematography, and more. So there are a few extras on that. But I'm looking forward to watching that, but I'm not going to watch it just yet because I've got a plan. Deb says, by the way, what we watched Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die last night. Jeff says, thanks for the recommendation. That's okay, Jeff. That's what I do here. I'm glad you guys liked it. It is a fun movie, and it's got that gonzo sensibility that's really good. And I've got another recommendation for you. I'm going to do a full review probably on Saturday of this film, but I'm going to recommend it in the meantime when I talk about the things that I've already watched. So I've got that last one. Deb says, Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die was a lot of fun. It is. I got this. I don't know whether it's any good, but it's on DVD, and I thought I'd take a punt on it. It's a time travel comedy called Time Stalker. Know nothing about it. It's a cold buy from me, but I thought I'd give it a go. I thought I'd take a punt. and I probably will review it on the channel at some stage. There's things I'm reviewing for the channel, and there's things I watch for the pleasure of it, and sometimes I have trouble separating those. And I go, do I need to sit down and make notes of this movie when I'm watching it, or do I just need to sit down and watch it? It's two very different experiences, watching a movie for the channel and watching a movie just for the fuck of it. But yeah, so that's what I picked up. Not a lot, but we'll see. And there are some good things coming up in the future too, because I've got the order form for new imprint releases and new umbrella releases. And there's some really good stuff on the umbrella releases. There's really good stuff on the imprint releases. It's just a matter of what they send me. But I'm looking forward to those ones as well, because there's some films that I really want to see in those lists. Deb says, Begonia was right on my sweet spot, as I'm myself convinced Laughing was fangirl. Yeah, I mean, interesting director doing totally different shit than anybody else. I saw Poor Things in the cinema, and I got a copy of it as well. Just such a fun film. But anyway, let's see what else we've got on the list. I'm trying not to speed run my list. I'm trying to kind of dole things out in a measured way. Otherwise, I run out of things to talk to in the 2 hours. Okay, Deb's given us a weather report from Nipaluna. What's the weather like where you are? We'll do the weather report because we always do a weather report. It's 12 degrees here at the moment, and it's going to get up to about 25. So it is going to get warmer, but it's the time of year when our mornings are kind of cool, and then it gets warmer in the daytime. So I want a weather report from everyone. 17 people online. What's the weather like where you are? Because I know it's warming up in the northern hemisphere. It's cooling down here. In the tropics, they've got the best of both worlds. D. Lee says, I saw Operation Hail Mary last week after your review. It was good, if unevenly paced. I'll agree with that. Felt the influence of Silent Running, well acted and great effects. Yeah, Silent Running is not a movie I like because the protagonist is dumb for plot reasons in that movie, and it kind of took me out of it. Deb says, Alice Slowe's A Force of Nature. Have I seen Sightseers? No, I haven't. Dick says, it's raining in Dover, UK. There's a bit of a surprise. FG says, 23 degrees C and sunny in Kansas. That's how we want it. Forsale says, 51 degrees sunny and breezy. London, 10 degrees Celsius, which is about what we've got at the moment. High of 13, but feels like 4 degrees Celsius due to wind chill and dampness. Patrick says, sunny and 77 degrees Fahrenheit, bit breezy here in Albuquerque. D. Lee says, windy and threatening rain where he is. Yeah, great. Cool. Peter says, 20 degrees in, fine with the possibility of op shopping later. Yeah, op shops tend to be closed on Sundays. So just be aware that the religious op shops are never open. DB Cooper says, 10 degrees C in Portland. The weather yesterday was absolutely beautiful for the No Kings March. Yeah, you guys really hit the 3rd March really well. I've seen a lot of footage from people I know on social media about the No Kings March. 29 degrees C in Clearwater, Florida, 85 to us in the US, Ralph says. Cool. Peter says, I'm in Adelaide. It's Monday. Oh, it is Monday. Shit, sorry, Peter. My mistake. I'm going to hit an op shop or two today as well because I'm dropping Sal off for an appointment. And that's my opportunity to hit a couple of op shops. So, yeah, I'm not sure which ones I'll go to, but I'll work something out. The other cool thing, I can mention this because it's on the list. Let me have a sip of water and I'll tell you the magical thing that's happening in April where I live. Zammy Adams, hi. Says Sightseers is brilliant. Let me write down Sightseers. I'm going to add to the list, as I always do. Got that. Dick says, had 3 days off at the beginning of the week for me, and Carol hit the secondhand charity shops. Cool. You guys have just the best op shops up your way. Yeah, so here's what's happening. April. 2026. State of Victoria, which is about the state size of England, Scotland, and Wales put together. All public transport is free for the month of April because with all this shit going on in the Strait of Hormuz, they're trying to get people to use their cars less. So the state government has made all public transport free across the state for the month of April. Also, an election's coming up, so it doesn't hurt to sweeten things up a bit. So I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling around. I'm going to be taking trains around and doing a lot of shit for the Travel Channel while public transport is free. In fact, Wednesday, which is the 1st of April, I'm going to be heading out to Gippsland and hitting a pie shop that I really like. May have a meet up with my sister-in-law, just working that out. But public transport across the state is free. Technically, were I able to do this, and I can't because I'd have to stay overnight at a hotel, I could get from Mount Gambier in South Australia all the way over to Malakuta for nothing. I can get to Albury in New South Wales for nothing. I can go to Echuca. I can go to Swan Hill. I can go to Mildura. I can go anywhere in the state of Victoria for absolutely zero with the rim removed. So I'm looking forward to that. Dick says, videos to his channel showing what we found coming soon. Cool. D. Lee says, I think people give Last Month a bit too much credit for being imaginative with Begonia, given it's a milder remake of Save the Green Planet. Yeah, I'm going to watch Save the Green Planet again too. Renessa Chambara says, got the Vim Vendors, a Curzon collection, Paris, Texas, and Wings of Desire. The Goalkeeper's Fear of the Penalty, Alice in the City's Wrong Move, and Kings of the Road Until the End of the World. That's a nice collection. That is really, really impressive. Carol says, I didn't find as much time off, but that's the chance you take when I didn't find as much this time off, but that's the chance you take when thrifting. It's always being in the right place at the right time. Absolutely. Like when I was in a place I never go to, Bentley, and I found all of I, Claudius on a shrink-wrapped DVD set for $1. It is just the luck of the hunt. And, of course, that's part of the fun, Carol, is just wandering off, hunting things down and finding things occasionally. And there are times when I go out looking at op shops and I'll hit 3 or 4 and find absolutely bugger all except for asshole Judd Apatow movies. But again, it is the luck of it. And there are a lot of people out hunting. It's not like you're alone. Where I live, in Melbourne, there are a lot of people out hunting DVDs and Blu-rays from charity stores. And so you've got to be just at that moment when they become available. And you also got to have an awareness of what is good stuff and what is dross. Renaissance Champara says, I love digging for records and digging for Blu-rays and DVDs. Yeah, absolutely. It's all fun. It's and also you get your steps in while you're doing it. So there's not a problem there. But yeah, so I'm going to be doing a lot of travel stuff for the other channel in the month of April. The other thing, here it is. It's my birthday in April too. And I've got a very slight request. You don't have to do this. But if anybody wants to send me a new hat, I need new hats. I've got these ones. I've got a lot of these ones. I don't like mesh backs. So if anybody wants to send me a birthday present this year, and the fart gun fell on the floor. The address is in the description of all the videos. You can send me a hat with something local to you, as long as it's not a mesh back, because I don't like mesh backs. Deb says, Tasmania has free buses for the next couple of months too. Cool. It's almost worth me going across on the ferry to Launceston and heading down to Tassie. I could do them both. Carol says, enjoy the looking. You never know what you're going to find. Absolutely. Dealey got Spielberg's Duel and the Tidfield Thunderbolt. That's a nice little movie. I like Tidfield Thunderbolt. Deb says, do I want a homespun handmade beanie for winter? Absolutely, Deb. Thank you. I would love one. You got to remember, I've got a big head. That's the only proviso there. Marissa Chambara says, it's a day out for me and an old mate that I know from back in the days DJing. Yeah, just getting out there and doing stuff is just such fun. Let's see. But, yeah, I'm really looking forward to, so much stuff, and I really wanna get out and about and do a lot of stuff in the month of April because, the weather's still not entirely egregious, and so I can do a little bit. There's some places I wanna go to, and the good thing is it's not just the trains, it's gonna be trains and buses because beyond a certain point where the trains don't run, there are regional buses going to all sorts of interesting places around Victoria, so I'm gonna do a lot of that. DB Cooper says, "My last video on Terry Travels was my favourite one." Yeah, I had fun with that. I had to be in town to do a couple of things, and I just lucked into having interesting things happen, like that weird guy who burped loudly to try to ruin my video, and heading around South Melbourne and, Pellegrini's Cafe. All of that kind of stuff just happened circumstantially, and it made the video work, and it's one of the most popular videos on the channel, which is kinda nice. Carol says, "Got surgery on my hand this month, so 2 weeks not being able to drive while off work. Hoping to use the buses to get around. The weather is good." Yeah, getting out and about even when you are a little bit infirmed is a good thing. It puts your head in a different space, which is always healthy. Peter says, "South Australian Labor will issue seniors cards to all people over 60. We get a free public transport with a seniors card." That's kind of cool. And Malinowskis really hammered the opposition during your election last week. Really landed it. Yeah, you got two One Nation wankers into the lower house, but South Australia did really well at the last election. Dick says, "I've got a box of DVD goodies for you in the channel, but with recent events of this and haven't had the chance to post it out, but we'll try to get it out for your birthday month." Thanks, Dick. I really appreciate that because the stuff you send is always like, wow. It's always amazing stuff. Yeah. So, what's the prognosis, Carol? That's what I've got to say is how is your hand and are you going to be able to still bottom deal decks of cards and things like that? Which I can do, by the way. I can bottom deal a deck of cards, though I only use it for good. Have I got a deck of cards around? Give me a sec. I've got to get up and show you my gut. I do have a deck of cards. But yeah, so interesting things happening. Weird thing is I've got to be careful too with that travel because over the Easter holidays, come on, open up your bastard. Over the Easter holidays, it's going to get very, very busy on public transport because everybody's going to be using the free transport to get around for the chocolate rabbit on a cross holiday. But I'm going to get around. I'm going to try to see places I haven't seen before. Going to places like Traralgon in Gippsland and doing stuff like that. Okay, there are the cards. Just give them a quick shuffle. It's my Destiny Forsaken cards. I can do one-handed cuts like this. Hang on. It's hard to do when I'm holding them up, but I can do it when I'm holding them at like waist level. Carol has carpal tunnel in both wrists. My left hand's really bad, so surgery is the only option, sadly. Hopefully surgery will ease the pain so I can sleep better and use Band-Aids easier. Yep. Well, I have this. So surgery for those kind of things does have a pretty good prognosis from what I understand. I had a lump on my wrist and I was nearly into surgery. And I went there to have the day surgery done. I took time off work. And the surgeon said, "No, we better just let it heal itself." While I was about to go in there, I took like 2 weeks off work, which was a bit disappointing. Fortunately, the guy didn't charge me. But yeah, there was like this wrist. There was a big lump there. There was a little bit of a worry, but it's gone away. Everything's perfect now. I did that because I punched a punching bag to impress a woman. I was like, this is like 30 years ago. Uh, I hit a punching bag really hard. I actually hit it, I knocked it fairly out of whack, but it gave me like a ganglion in my wrist because I didn't hold my fist properly. Because that's how stupid I used to be. So you have free travel. We've done pickups. Carol says, it's through my work and we all do the surgery a lot, so I should be okay. Sounds like you had a ganglion. Yeah, I had a ganglion. But the ganglion fixed itself because, I got superpowers. Harry Potter thing. Harry Potter thing's interesting because there's a big kerfuffle on social media. There are people foaming at the mouth and fulminating and spontaneously combusting about this HBO Harry Potter series. And the trailer came out and everybody went, well, not everybody, but a lot of people went, why are they doing that? We only just got the movies out this century. Why are they going and making a Harry Potter TV series when everyone knows what happens? And also, J.K. Rowling is such a transphobic piece of shit. She's funding anti-trans organizations. She's trolling trans people. She's being a real shit about people who are our most vulnerable in society. Trans youths have the highest suicide rate of any group in Australia and in a number of other countries as well. We need to help people. And J.K. Rowling, being a billionaire, is being a total shit to trans people. And a lot of people are boycotting this HBO Harry Potter series for that reason. I am myself. And I've actually talked to a lot of movie reviewers and TV reviewers, people who review stuff. And the consensus of opinion is we give that no oxygen. We don't link to the trailer, which I did, but I'm not going to do again. We don't talk about it. We don't give any oxygen to this TV series or streaming series because to do so will make J.K. Rowling wealthier because somebody will watch it. Somebody will, I assume, enjoy it. And there's a lot of discussion on social media about whether people should be a part of that. Jeff Rousseau at Films at Home has found a way. He says he supports trans people, but he's going to watch this because otherwise the people who made the movie or the people who aren't J.K. Rowling will suffer because of this. I don't agree with that argument. I think that those people have already been paid. Yeah, they won't get bonuses, but they've already been paid. And nostalgia has to stop somewhere short of supporting somebody who is, by any measure that I know, a bad person. I really don't think that your childhood yum is worth the yuck of somebody actively working against people who need our care, our support, our love, and our recognition. Forsyth says, a great poster on No King's Day, our bodies, our earth, our future. Absolutely. I agree with that, Forsyth. J.K. Rowling is on my no-go list, says Deb. I refuse to review anything she's involved in now. Yes, like Kevin Spacey and Cosby and all those people. D. Lee says, I like the way Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill dealt with the Harry Potter in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Mary Poppins kicked his ass. Mary Poppins is a tough chick. Peter says, the Harry Potter series has bomb written all over it already. For once, I want it to be cancelled. And Dick says, oops, Technogram's just crept in and you froze. No, I didn't. I've got a heater under the desk. But yeah, so my take on it is really simple. I've read the books when they came out before we knew who and what Jo Rowling is. We even got the movies before we knew what she was. We got them on DVD. We got rid of them when we found out what she was. got rid of the books, got rid of the movies, don't need them. And it comes up with that argument as well, which I really like. People go, well, we're not going to have anything to watch. And the same goes for writers, with science fiction writers as well. There are people who turn out to be shits, and I'm not going to name them. But there are a number of really toxic people in science fiction and fantasy and things like that. And there are so many other options. That's the thing. If you're putting an embargo and putting a ban on Harry Potter stuff, there are a lot of other good fantasy series, particularly young adult stuff out there. There's a Percy Jackson stuff, which I really like. I think that's a groovy franchise, and I haven't heard anything bad about the author. I wouldn't go with the Wheel of Time stuff because the writer of that series, he turned up at a convention in Perth, Western Australia, back in the day when he was alive, because it's always good to have a guest of honour who's alive. He was a racist and a sexist piece of shit. And he left the convention early because basically they threw his ass out. Robert Jordan. Total piece of shit, Southern bubba. He got thrown out because people in Perth, at SwanCon in Perth, don't take shit from people. And they threw the fucking author from overseas out of their convention. Morning, Damien. How you doing? It's very early for Damien. It's like, I'm trying to do number 4:30 in the morning where he is. Yeah, Damien was there. Damien remembers the Robert Jordan shit. And I know a number of people who called him out on panels as well, including my good friend Lucy Sussex. Piece of shit. And then they make the Wheel of Time thing. And there's no mention of the fact that the author, who is the person who created the IP, was what he was. And there's no sign of it on the internet at all. If you go and type in Robert Jordan racist, you will get crickets, because it's only living memory that remembers that particular kerfuffle and that particular thing. And science fiction is, as a community, is full of scandals. I mean, there was a science fiction fan who has died, who was a rock spider. He was a Notz. And then somebody new to the science fiction community wanted to do an award in his name for young adult writing. And we had to tell her, and in doing so, tell the whole community, that this particular person was a Notz, and that giving an award out in his name to young adult writing was exactly the wrong thing to do. So a lot of that kind of stuff goes on. And while the people who were aware of it were gatekeepers, and we couldn't say anything while he was alive because we would have got sued under Australian law. And he had some very powerful friends in the Catholic Church in Australia who would have funded litigation. When he died, the gloves were off, and we could say who and what he was. And his memory in the community has been expunged since then. Damien says there were other authors that came to SwanCon that were not nice. Yeah, there were a few. Peter says, I sat through the first Potter movie, got 5 pages into the Rowling books, found her writing unreadable, and moved on. Damien's in bed sick. Sorry about that, Damien. Look after yourself, mate. Soup is the way. Soup, and a little bit later, a little sip of whiskey maybe. But look after yourself, mate, and take care. This turning of the seasons thing does tend to make us unwell. Sal had a few days of a cough and things like that because she always gets some kind of short-term bug when the seasons turn. Damien has plenty of chicken soup. Good. What I really like is there's a brand of mushroom soup that's really good. It's in like foil packets. And I usually have that with the sourdough roll I get from the bakery. And in wintertime in particular, that's like the perfect lunch. You sprinkle some ground pepper on top of the mushrooms, because mushrooms and ground pepper go well together. And it's the best thing. And you just dip your chunks of sourdough into it. Now I'm hungry. I've had breakfast, but I'm hungry. That kind of stuff is great. My other go-to lunch during winter months is a can of stag chili and a sourdough roll. That's the perfect lunch for me. That may be my um, deathbed request is a sourdough roll and a bowl of chili. DB Cooper says Norman Mailer got so mad at Gore Vidal for calling him on his bigotry, he punched him in the face. Apparently, Gore responded by saying, "Once again, your words fail you." Class act, Gore Vidal. I've read his essay. I've got a book of his essays, which is just such a classy read. D. says Harry Potter is one of those things I throw in the not for me pile like Game of Thrones, Hunger Games, Star Wars, and Stranger Things. In defense of Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin and his partner Paris are crazily lovely people. I've met George on a number of occasions. He has always been gracious and lovely. He is a friend of friends of mine. Got nothing but good to say about George. Yes, he's not writing a book fast enough for people, but screw that. He's not obliged to. But he is a truly lovely person, and I am very, very happy about his success, which came late in life. And now he's doing things like grabbing old theatres and renovating them and turning them into repertory theatres, with showing old movies. You got to like that. Somebody hits it rich and starts renovating cinemas. They're our kind of people. Peter says, stag chili, my go-to medicinal food too. Yeah, absolutely. Soup, yeah, definitely soup. Yeah, changed the seasons bug a few weeks ago. Soup cures everything. Yeah, a good soup in wintertime is just the best thing. YouTube me says, I believe George is a good guy. I believe he's a hard worker as an editor, and none of us fans are mad because he isn't writing us because he's been lying to us for 20 years. I don't think he's been lying to you. The thing is that he may have writer's block. He may have a whole bunch of different things. But George is a good person, and I will defend him all the time. And I like Paris. I've met Paris a few times as well, and she's lovely as well. Just a nice pair of people. Patrick says, George is cool. He's from my hometown, Bayonne, New Jersey. And now he lives in Albuquerque because the weather's nicer. And I like Albuquerque because I flew over it. And from a certain angle, when you're flying over Albuquerque, it looks like a dartboard. It's like all these circles of things. YouTube me says, he said outright that the book was written just stuck in editing for more than 10 years. That's a lie. He doesn't owe you anything. You haven't bought the book. Just chill the fuck out. He does what he does. He's not holding things back because he's an asshole. There are reasons, but what he does with his business is his business. He owes you nothing. YouTube me, I think it's time for you to back off on that. Otherwise, I will block you. Don't need your attitude in the live stream here. Does anybody else agree with me? Take a look at the chat. Damien says, Harry Potter books and Famous Five always go out of the library, will not read or watch the films. Absolutely. There are authors I just won't touch. Like Arthur C. Clarke. Arthur C. Clarke was a nonce, but nobody mentions it. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. J.K. Rowling is by any measure a bad person. And there are people who support this channel. There are people who support me. There are people I have known for 40 years who are trans, who are asexual, who are intersex as well. Somebody I've known for 40 odd years is intersex and is a lovely person. I know a number of trans people both ways, and I support them. That cruelty, and yeah, Who the fuck gave anybody the right to police what gender somebody is? It's not your business. It's not your right to say somebody is a male or a female. It's what people are in themselves. And there's a vulnerability to those people because they have lived in the shadows for a long time and they're scared. They're scared of what will happen. They're scared of losing their jobs. They're scared of losing their family. They're scared of losing their loved ones by becoming who they truly are. And we should reach out a hand every time to support them. Deb says, my son now in his 30s was the Potter generation. Read the books as they were released, read them together, and it was a lovely experience. Okay. Forsyth says, I've only read George R.R. Martin's letters of comment which appeared in comic book fanzines in the 60s, which I collect. Cool. Damon says, I knew a person who worked for Clark. I felt something wrong with this guy. Yeah, the wife of a very famous science fiction writer, now dead, told me that Clark was a nonce in the 80s. And they were honest about it. And they said, this is why we don't do collabs and other things with Arthur C. Clarke. Peter says, I was becoming a fan of Neil Gaiman after Coraline. I was quite sad and disappointed when I found out about his behaviour. I got drunk with him in Tasmania. I don't know whether he was drinking, but we were in Hadley's Hotel in Tasmania at a convention, and I won an award at that convention. And there was him, there was Kim Stanley Robinson, there was a bunch of other people. And we were all sitting and getting drunk in the front bar of Hadley's Hotel in Nipaluna. He had a creepy vibe then. Stan was a lovely guy. Kim Stanley Robinson. If you want to read his books, which I recommend, things like Ministry for the Future. Fantastic utopian science fiction. Lovely guy. But Gaiman had a weird vibe. Same as when I met Kevin Spacey at a very, very small press conference in Melbourne. He had a weird vibe. There's something that sets off your spidey sense about certain people. And that played out in the case of those two individuals. Deb says the connection makes the truth about Rowling all the more horrible. Yeah, I can understand that, Deb. Hi, Diego. How you doing? But yeah, so there are bad people out there, but there's a lot of other stuff. Find new writers, find new series and stuff. Find something new if somebody isn't the kind of person you would trust with your family, if you know what I mean. By the way, I saw the first episode of the second season of Daredevil Born Again, and that was really good. That works for me. Disney's pumping them out once a week, which is just such an old-fashioned way to do it. Give me the whole bloody series and I will binge it, and I will probably enjoy it. But don't just feed me one episode a week. I want to binge everything. I want the whole lot. I want the full Megillah. How do other people feel about that? Getting series that you like just fed to you one episode a week, so you don't get the whole flow of the series in one go. Don't like that particularly. But yeah, let's get off the subject of people we don't like and talk about people we do like. What do we have on the list? Okay, Monarch Legacy of Monsters is coming out slow. Hate it, says Patrick. I'm watching Monarch, and I enjoyed Monarch. A lot of fun. Damien likes watching one episode at a time, and so does Deb. But Peter wants to get the whole series in one hit. Zammy Adams says, I watched The Visit in 1979 today. Blew my mind. I think I know the movie. If I'm right, let me just check. I'm going to do a bit of a Google. Actually, I don't use Google. Here's a tip for you. There's a thing called startpage.com, which is an alternative. It Googles, but it doesn't give Google your information. And I recommend it as a search engine rather than using Google. So startpage.com it strips all your data off your request that you make to Google and then feeds your results. Yeah, The Visitor, also known as Stridulum. Great cast: Mel Ferrer, Glenn Ford, Lance Hendrickson, John Huston, Sam Peckinpah, Shelley Winters. That's a good cast. I'm going to have to rewatch that. I think I watched it on VHS back when the world was young. I did binge a whole series last week. I can't remember what it was. But I did like 8 episodes. And I'm trying to find out what it was because at the moment I just can't remember it. I think it was on Amazon, so I'll take a look at my Amazon. Delicious Ecosia was the best. The searches you do on it, fun planting trees. Yeah, any of the alternatives are good. Ecosia is good. Start Page is good. I'm using Start Page at the moment. I'm happy with the results I'm getting. So that's not a bad thing. I know what I watched. It just came out. I watched all of the second season of Deadlock, the Australian kind of crime drama comedy series that's on Amazon. Made by the Cates, who are really great Australian creators. Second season set in Darwin. The first season was set in Tasmania. But the second season set up in Larrakia country in Darwin. And it's hilariously funny. It's got more C words than any series I have ever seen, and I'm there for that. But if you have Prime, check out Deadlock. It is very, very funny. And check out both seasons. They're both on there. And I'll spell it for you. I'll put it in the chat. Deadlock. Groovy stuff. And strong female casts in it. Really a lot of fun. And I binged all 8 episodes at once because Prime put them all up. And I just went through them in a day and had a great time with it. They've got a Hemsworth in it as well. Second season's got a Hemsworth. It's Luke Hemsworth. It's not Chris Hemsworth. But it is hilariously funny. It is just silly and fun, and the characters are over the top. And I love it. Damien says Eureka has announced the Kingdom of the Spiders Blu-ray, along with Madhouse with Vincent Price and Peter Cushing, and Oh, What a Lovely War. That's a good bunch of films there. Kingdom of the Spiders is a mad film. That apocalyptic ending is just the best. Patrick says, didn't know there was a second season. Yeah, it's global. So if you do have Prime, Patrick, you can watch it and binge it. And it's the best. And I've spent some time in the Northern Territory around Darwin, and it's very much got the vibe of there. It's got the build-up, which is the bit before the wet season, when things just get hotter and more humid, and everybody goes a little crazy because it's hot and humid, and half the people are getting thrushed because of the humidity, and people go a little bit crazy in the top end, which is what they call it up around the Northern Territory, when the build-up's happening. And then suddenly you see some dragonflies on ponds, and you know that the wet season is about a week away. And then the wet season hits. The only time I've been to Darwin, the only times I've been to Darwin, I think we've been there 3 times, is during the wet season. And I like it. It's hot, it's humid. It rains like you've never seen before for about 20 minutes, and then it stops. And then about 3 hours later, it does it again. It's a really weird time of year. But I like it. I don't mind wet season in the tropics. Yeah, take an umbrella with you. If you get wet, doesn't matter. You'll dry out when the rain stops. But at one stage, Sal and I were thinking about moving to Darwin, but it just never panned out for us. But Darwin is one of the places in Australia we really love. If they're offering free public transport to Darwin, I would take it because it's just such a lovely place. Oh yeah, the other thing too is I'm still getting lots and 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 lots of ads on YouTube and other places for vacationing in America. They really are trying to get people back there and telling you how wonderful and pretty various places in the US are. We're getting state specific ads like California and other places, and New York are really pushing the ads. But the consensus of opinion is no way. Damien says those ads are so annoying. They are. They're really crazily annoying because while things are as they are, it ain't safe to go there. I mean, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. I'm not good at that. So, yeah, but we are getting lots and lots of ads. I'm getting ads for a whole bunch of different things. I'm getting ads for cars I can't afford. I'm getting ads for tourism in the USA. I'm getting ads for retirement homes. Screw that. I'm getting ads for everything I don't need. I did get them for like menstrual underwear and like female incontinence underwear and things like that. But they've stopped now. Deb says, yeah, I've been to the USA. You're getting USA travel ads for California and Texas. Yeah, I'm getting Texas as well. For Sale says, I recently binged the TV series Monk, over 100 episodes, and each one's a winner. Good writing in Monk. And Shaluba's just such an interesting actor as well. Peter says, USA vacation ads make me sad for the people, not the government. Absolutely, Peter. Carol says, all we get is ads for sofa companies and Airbnb. I like sofas. I don't mind Airbnb. Had the best Airbnb in Sydney. We went up there a couple of years ago. The Airbnb was a flat above a coffee shop, like a really good coffee shop. And part of the deal for the accommodation was you go downstairs in the morning, they'll give you breakfast and a coffee. Can't get better than that. That's like the ideal situation is your Airbnb is above a coffee shop that gives you free coffee. That's like perfect. In fact, I wouldn't mind living in a flat above a coffee shop. Mind you, I'd have to downsize, which I'm not fond of. Though I am starting to do a bit of a clearance of things here in the man cave. It doesn't look like it. I fully acknowledge that. But I haven't. I found some stuff. I found my old, I got a Leatherman multi-tool, which I'd lost 8 years ago. I found it in a backpack pocket. And I found the backpack, which is a really good backpack. And I'm now going to use that backpack for my Terry Travels video, carrying around stuff backpack. There's stuff in this room that I've forgotten about. And I'm going to rediscover it as I clear things out. And I am, as I said, gradually clearing things out. And I'm going to find all sorts of things I've forgotten about and that I treasure. I'm going to Marie Kondo it a bit. If I find stuff that I really love, it ain't going anywhere. My multi-tool is just such a useful thing with a big pair of pliers and stuff. It's now out of, they don't make it anymore. It's they stopped making that particular multi-tool in 2006. But it's useful. It's got one blade in it. It's got Phillips head screwdriver. It's got a flathead screwdriver. It's got a whole bunch of stuff in it and a big pair of pliers. I just love that stuff. Damien says it's so sad when some of these US states are destroying libraries. Absolutely. I think libraries are just such a good community hub too. Our libraries around here are fantastic. Haven't done it lately, but I did like going to the library, just taking out one of my laptops and getting some notes done for the channel because it's got like a cool chill out vibe. The other thing too is people can rent, well, at no charge, but here in Australia at least, they have DVDs and Blu-rays at the library. So if you don't have the wherewithal to buy physical media. Your local library will rent your stuff. It's not necessarily going to be Criterion editions of Jacques Tati and Yorgos Lanthimos, but it is going to be good stuff. And libraries are repositories of community wisdom as well. There are lots of resources, particularly out our way, where there are a lot of first-generation Australians. There are just so many resources for people who want to increase their English language skills, who want to network in the community, who want to network in a wider community as well. Libraries are just so crucial to who we are. Closing down libraries is just such a worrying thing, for the reason is people in power want people to be dumber. And one of the ways to make them dumber is to not have libraries. But I'm avoiding politics in this one, so we'll see how we go. Nick Cook says, hi, I just rewatched a movie series, Ultraviolet, and early Idris Elba role in it. Sort of modernist vampire thing with Le Carré undertones. A bit bleak, but worth a watch. I've got that on DVD. Haven't watched it for a while, but I kind of like that take on vampires. Damien says, City of Perth Library building is now 10 years old, so I had to reach my long service. Cool, long service is good. And I know you're retiring soon, Damien. And I don't think it's better, mate. It's just a good thing to do. I should have retired when I was 20, but I wasn't rich enough. I just mentioned Amazon on the live stream, and I'm starting to get emails from them. Yeah, Ultraviolet is cool. There are a lot of series like that people tend to forget. Our cultural memory of things from like 20 or 30 years ago is fading a lot because there's always new stuff being forced into your eyeballs by the algorithm. And that stuff tends to let us forget that there was groovy stuff 10, 20 years ago. There's things like Sanctuary and Primeval and all those things, which are only like 20 years old, but were really good fun. But the algorithm wants you to do the next thing, not to enjoy what you enjoyed before. And one of the things I'm trying to do with the channel is point out, first off, the new good stuff, but also the good stuff from previous years you might be able to get secondhand somewhere. Damien says, same here about retirement. I'm looking forward to retirement and doing a tidy. Yeah, give yourself time. My theory with retirement is give yourself 6 months to get used to it. I think that's the best advice I can give. Give yourself 6 months to get in the rhythm and find out where you want to be, what you want to do, which isn't going to be the same as what you think it's going to be before you retire. I didn't know I was going to be doing this YouTube channel and making a little bit of money from it when I retired. I knew I wanted to keep doing podcasts, though the podcasts weren't financially viable. But I found my voice, I found my place, I found my community, I found out I enjoy this, and I found out that there's always a learning curve, which keeps me a little bit on my toes. Damien's been watching Sanctuary. Forsyth says, I've been retired for 15 years now and I'm loving every minute of it. Absolutely. And it's a good thing. Deb says, Libraries Tasmania is great apart from books. They have a fabulous e-library and lots of events. But yeah, those community events work really well too. That reminds me, April we've got the Lit Festival in my area around Werribee, which is a festival of lights down at the local park, where you have a whole bunch of art displays made of light. Happens every year down at the park near Werribee Railway Station, which was designed by Indigenous landscapers. Fantastic. I'm going to do a video of it this year again. But I always look forward to the Lit Festival. and it's happening in April. Damien says, good advice, like I do about film. Yeah, give yourself 6 months to kind of get into the rhythm of it and work out who you are without reference to a job. And it will work. Torgo says, just dropped in, got to go work. Is she Voldemort? Yes, she is. She is cruel to people who need our support. She is actively working against an inclusive society, Torgo. She is Voldemort. Ralph says, library collections are great for depth since they don't just want to sell the latest hotness. Look for obscure films. They're absolutely, Ralph. And also, they occasionally get rid of movies, so you can get some cheap pickups there if they've got them. You know, they might have 3 copies or something. So there's always that. Deb says, my retirement so far has been exhausting. I'm busier now than I've been in years. Yeah, but it keeps you on your toes, Deb. And the good thing too there is that kind of busy retirement is you're doing that for you. You're not doing it to make somebody else rich. You're not doing it for any other reason except for you and yours. And yes, that does sound selfish. But, I mean, for me, doing this channel, I can say I'm doing it for me, which I partly am. I'm also doing it to communicate and to build community and to share the good stuff. Because one of my founding theories is there's no use knowing a lot of stuff if you don't share it. Kind of keeping knowledge to yourself is selfish. Keeping wisdom to yourself is selfish. Keeping things you've learned is selfish unless you share it. You've always got to share. Torgo says, okay, thanks. That's what I thought. Have a good day. All. Yeah, you too. Look after yourself. Be safe. Carol says, the way things are going over here, God knows when or what we get to retire. Again, that's a problem. I'm fully aware of that one, Carol. Deb says, absolutely. My retirement is all for me and mine. Why not? You've earned it. But is my retirement exhausting? No, it's not. I take things at my own pace. One of the things I've learned in retirement, which I didn't expect to learn, is my PTSD screwed a lot of my career path because the anxiety of, you constantly, improving your KPIs, constantly doing better with less, productivity, all that kind of stuff is not something that was compatible with my complex PTSD. And so I never quite believed what they were saying for a start. But that constant churn triggered me daily with my complex PTSD. And it's only when I started working for myself in retirement and following my own path that I realized that for the 45 years I was in the workforce, I was struggling every single bloody day because my PTSD was constantly being kicked in the nuts. So I learned something. Wisdom. Sometimes it kisses you on the mouth. Sometimes it hits you in the back of the head. But eventually you get the message. Ugh. Okay, what else? I've got to let you know what I've been watching too. Carol says, most of my friends are older and already retired. A bit jealous. They get to do stuff I can't do, but at least I have a job. Yeah, there are trades-offs there. If you like the job, that's fine. Ralph says, can't wait. I've got 8 to 10 years myself. When you do, Ralph, give yourself that 6 months to figure out what you are. Because whether we know it or not, to a certain extent, we define ourselves by our work. And when that is no longer there, it'll take you 6 months to figure it out. Nick Cook says, well said, mate. Thank you. Ian says, recently I enjoyed Auntie Mame the Bedford incident. My name is Nobody. and The Time That Remains, a Palestinian movie. Also watched On the Silver Globe and Experience. Yeah, absolutely. They're good selections. I like Auntie Mae. And the Bedford incident is very hardcore. Okay, I'm going to open up my letterbox now and tell you what I've been watching, because there's stuff I've been watching that I haven't talked about on the channel. Surprisingly enough, I watch more movies than I talk about. Let's have a look here. I watched a movie on Tubi, surprisingly enough, called Plastercaster, which is a documentary about Cynthia Plastercaster, who was a teenager in Chicago and was doing art classes. And she was also a groupie. And she decided that what she was going to do is plastercast the dicks of rock stars and rock musicians that she liked their music. One of her first ones was Jimi Hendrix. And she ended up with this collection of plaster casts of penises from very famous rock stars. And this movie was made in about 2002, when she's in her 50s. And she's putting on a display of her plaster casts in New York City. And she's a very complex person. She's a lovely person as well. And she's very honest about her sexuality, her passion, and her plaster casting. She also did the breasts of female musicians mostly in the 21st century. She died a couple of years ago. But it's a really nice documentary about Cynthia Plastercaster. And I really enjoyed that. Deb says, I got pushed into retirement by ill health, but on reflection has been brilliant. And yes, take that first 6 months of the year to reflect. Carol says, like my job is subjective, I can't do it, but I can do it, and it's reasonably well paid, so I'll settle for that. For Sale says, I have Plastercaster on DVD. Such a fun movie. It is. It's a nice little documentary, and it's got a gonzo sensibility to it. It's got a punk sensibility to it. And I like that. I like her passion for showing the rock stars how the process is going to go. She's got financial troubles. She's got personal troubles. Just a full picture of a person who's got a vision, who's got a passion, and just ran with it through her entire life. And you can't watch Plastercaster, the documentary, without falling the tiniest bit in love with Cynthia. I really like that. It's a hidden gem of a documentary, and I really like it. What else have I been watching? Where is it? Did I get rid of it? No, there it is there. It's a pity Franny's not on the live stream, because I've actually watched the movie Franny asked me to watch, which is Curse of the Queer Wolf. Mark Pirro's Curse of the Queer Wolf, which is a very low budget movie shot probably on Super 8, about this guy who's got a girlfriend, but he makes out with a chick at a party with one of his mates, and the chick turns out to be a trans person who bites him on the ass, and like a werewolf turns him into a queer wolf, where on the full moon he dresses in drag and acts camp. It's Plastercaster is on Tubi, Deb. But Curse of the Queer Wolf is silly as hell. Low budget, silly. It works in its own way. It's by Mark Pirro, who also made a movie that, like Curse of the Queer Wolf and Plastercaster, is on Tubi. And that other movie is called Rectuma, which is about a kaiju bum. Not a serious movie maker, Mark Pirro. But his movies are on Tubi, and if you're in the mood for something kind of low budget and skeezy, Curse of the Queer Wolf I recommend, and also Rectuma, which actually got a DVD release here in Australia, oddly enough. And if I see it in an op shop, I may well pick it up. But yeah, I mean, one of the things too with Tubi is dive into the documentaries. Some of them are really shitty. There's always going to be shitty documentaries on Tubi, but go through it and just see what you can find. You're going to find some documentaries that really are just that little bit different and just that little bit interesting and just that little bit, hey, I didn't know that. I really recommend that you do that. Like with any of your other streaming services you have, free or paid, hit the documentaries. Some of them are going to be facile, but you will learn a lot from the docos. What else did I watch? Yeah, there's a few more. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was just chewing my chewing gum because I've got a blocked up nose and it does help a little bit. By the way, super chats are still available. I watched a movie that's on Shudder called, and I'll get this name right, Thousand Women in Horror, which is a documentary based on Alexandra Helen Nicholas's book about women in horror movies. Not only the characters, but women who make horror movies. Fantastic documentary about horror movies and women's contribution to horror movies. And it's not only cis-het women, there are trans women in there as well. There's a lot of talking heads and a lot of clips of movies. And I found 12 movies that I want to watch. While I was watching that, I sat down with my pen and paper and listed out 12 movies from 1,000 Women in Horror that I really want to see. And some of them are wildly gonzo crazy. Some of them are very grounded. I Spit on Your Grave gets mentioned in there as well. And Alexandra Helen Nicholas, who is Australian. I've got to get her book. Is in there as well. It's a good, solid documentary about women's contribution to horror movies. And of course, Mary Shelley, the writer of Frankenstein, created the horror genre as we know it now. And there's a lot of other female creators who explain why they like horror movies, how they got into horror movies, what they want to say with their horror movies. It's a great documentary, and I haven't written down as many movies to find and watch as I have since I saw Scorsese's documentary on American cinema. It is really, really, really useful. And it's interesting seeing different perspectives on horror, how many different women are writing and directing horror movies these days. And they're not going in soft, they're going in hard into the horror. And they're doing it from a uniquely woman's perspective, whether that's a cishet woman or a trans woman or a gay woman. Just a really good movie about horror movies. And it may be one of my best documentaries this year. Well made, well told. And I do have to get a copy of Alexandra's book. I may have to hit up Middle Aged Geek Girl for birthday month to buy that book. It is just so much in my wheelhouse. And these days, the only books I'm really buying are movie reference books. The only books I'm getting given are movie reference books as well. But 1,000 Women in Horror, you need to find that and watch it. It's really, really worth your time. And you will end up with a list of things to watch. Chat has frozen. Does that mean I'm getting ads? Which, of course, helps with paying the bills. But it does delay things. Damien said, I watched a Canadian TV miniseries on YouTube called Prairie Giant. Tommy Douglas about the 7th Premier of Saskatchewan, who brought 3 healthcare to Saskatchewan. That's kind of interesting. Yeah. Those stories need to be told. Those stories of people who are moving things forward need to be told. I reckon there should be a good documentary about how the Whitlam government brought in free university education in Australia and the long results of that, and how it's benefited this country a lot. I think there's an enormously useful documentary in that if somebody wants to make it. Telling those stories of why generosity and inclusiveness work, like this guy who did the free healthcare to Saskatchewan. That stuff's useful, and that stuff is telling the stories we need to hear about things we need to know. Let's see, what else have I been watching? Yeah, I watched Black Moon Rising from, I think, 1986, which is based on a story written by John Carpenter. He wrote the script. Not Frozen, just making notes in the movie you mentioned, says Deb. Yeah, I watched Black Moon Rising, which has Tommy Lee Jones and Linda Hamilton in it. Robert Vaughan's in it. Screenplay by John Carpenter, but it wasn't directed by him. About a kind of thief played by Tommy Lee Jones who hides something he steals in an experimental test car called the Black Moon, which is stolen by a bunch of high-tech corporate car thieves led by Robert Vaughn, but Linda Hamilton is one of the thieves working for them. So Tommy Lee Jones's character has got to get to this car so he can retrieve the computer disk in there for reasons. It is just such a 1980s movie. It's got a synthy score. It's got lots and lots of brutalist architecture. It's got young Tommy Lee Jones. It's got young Linda Hamilton. It's got Robert Vaughn playing a cashier check villain. But there's some nice stunt work in there. And the Black Moon car is just so 1980s, pseudo-futuristic, that you know that Elon Musk jizzed his pants looking at that car. It's Black Moon Rising. It was fun to watch. It's not the best action film of the 1980s, but seeing Tommy Lee Jones when he didn't look like a scrotum was fun. I mean, that synthy score kind of sits with you in the same way that Escape from New York's synthy score sits with you. So I watched Black Moon Rising. It's a kind of recommend from me. Going to drink some more water now. And then I saw a new movie called, I've got to get this name right, Mike and Nick and Alice, which is a time travel movie. Stars James Marsden, Isa Gonzalez, and Vince Vaughn. And it's about a bunch of criminals. One guy called Nick and another guy called Mike, played by James Marsden and Vince Vaughn. And Nick accidentally goes into a time machine and moves back in time 6 months and gets the chance to stop a hit on his friend Mike, played by James Marsden, who is having an affair with his wife, with Nick's wife, played by Isa Gonzalez. They're estranged a bit. And they eventually have to go up against Souza, the guy running their criminal organization, who's played by Keith David. So you end up with two Nicks, one from the past, which is called Present Nick, and another one called Future Nick. And you also get James Marsden's character, Mike, and Isa Gonzalez's character, all going up against this criminal organization they were a part of. And meanwhile, Souza has sent somebody to kill Mike, a guy called the Baron, who's not only an assassin, but he eats the people he kills. He's a cannibal assassin. And he's played by Dolph Lundgren. You also have Stephen Root in there as well. It's very kind of timey-wimey, futuristic stuff. And it's kind of low effort in a sense. But it's fun. The plot's got twists and turns. There's some very funny twists in this one. But I kind of recommend it. It's fun. Mike and Nick and Alice, which came out last year. And yeah, there's lots of pew, lots of shoot 'em ups. The Souza has a stepson who's a really useless piece of shit. And you can see parallels between Trump and his son Eric in that. Keith David is very funny in this movie as well. Really a nice, light bit of kind of science fiction adjacent movie making, which is not too bad. And we haven't had any chat for a while. What's happening with the chat? Is anybody there? Can you hear me, Clem Fandango? Which is a Toast of London reference. Come on, chat. I want proof of life. Damien says he's listening. Thank you, Damien. On the other side of the country. Deb says, I watched the Shrouds on movie this weekend. It was interesting contemplation on death and grief by David Cronenberg, and yes, lots of body horror. Yeah, I think David Cronenberg's happy with his body horror there. Nick's still here as well. What else have I been watching? There's a movie I'm going to talk about further on the channel, which I really enjoyed. I saw it yesterday because I was sitting on the couch, not doing too much. And it's called Redux. Hi, Ralph. Patrick's just enjoying my dulcet tones, which are getting less dulcet as my throat gets raw. Yeah, a movie called Redux. Great concept. It's about a woman whose daughter is kidnapped and killed by a serial killer called Neville. And her body's never found. And this woman is jumping between different parallel worlds in the multiverse and torturing and killing every Neville she finds in those alternate universes until she finds a universe where her daughter is either alive or she can torture Neville enough to get him to tell her where the body is. And she does this for years. She's jumping between thousands of different universes, thousands of different parallel Earths. And every Thursday, she kills a Neville. And the reason she does it on Thursdays is that's Neville's payday. And she's using his money to continue her quest to find some kind of resolution to her daughter. And she lives in the only alternate universe she's found that has a machine to jump between alternate universes. And in every other universe she goes to, she's not alive. There's no other her. Because the trauma of losing her daughter in every other universe has caused all of the parallel versions of her to end their own lives. She's the sole survivor. She's the last woman, kind of like the last girl. But she's the last version of her that she's found because all the rest of them have died of grief. And the movie starts fantastically, and it's in the trailer, so I can tell you. With her standing in the desert, and at her feet is one of the Nevilles, tied to a chair which has fallen over, and she is setting him on fire, and she's watching him burn. This is a nice movie. It is low budget. It tells a really interesting story. I'm not going to talk about it more than that because I want to do a full review. I think it deserves that. But Redux is one of those low budget movies that when you watch it, you go, why don't more people know about this movie? Good acting, good characters, good plot twists. There's a very, very hardcore confrontation with what is probably the smartest and most cunning of Nevilles. It's just, and it's all of the strong characters in this are women. Really female-led, strong feminist horror movie with a time travel aspect to it. Yeah, you might well like it, Deb. It is really, really good. And it does it on a fairly low budget. I really enjoyed this one. I thought, I've got to tell people about this because this movie is the dog's balls. It is really, really well done. It's only recent. I don't know which streaming service it's on. I've got a sneaky copy of it because I'd heard about it. But Redux, you got to check out. And I will do a full review of it. D. says, I saw Brewster McCloud the first time in decades recently. Forgot how skewed the plot was and that there was a parody of Bullet in there too. I haven't watched Brewster McCloud in a long time. And of course, Bud Cord died recently, so it's popping up on people's radar a lot more. But yeah, Brewster McCloud, Altman's made some really weird movies. And Brewster McCloud was a movie that a lot of people went, huh? When it came out. But it looks like it's fun. And I remember it being fun. I really should rewatch Brewster McCloud. Let me add that to the list under sightseers. And I'm always happy for recommendations, of course. There we go. I've added it to the list. Deb says it's available to rent on Prime and Apple TV. Thanks, Deb. Let's see. What else have I watched? I watched Mondo Carne because I've got a project. I'm going to do a video about different genres that have died. And Mondo movies are a genre that's died. And I was trying to watch at least one movie from each of the genres when I'm going to do the video about them. And so I watched the original Mondo movie, Mondo Carne. It's A Dog's Life, which is a 1962 documentary kind of about weird practices around the world. They go from cargo cults in New Guinea to the catacombs of the Capuchin monks who are looking after the bones of old monks underneath Rome or wherever. They do a whole thing about people getting drunk in the nightclub district of Hamburg and how fucking stupid people act when they're drunk. They've got Japanese bathhouses, onsens, all this stuff just showing how weird human life is on planet Earth. There are some very confronting scenes. Decapitating a bull with a Gurkha knife is not something that people are going to really want to watch these days. But Mondo Carne was the original Mondo film. And there are a whole bunch of other ones. There's Mondo Balordo, Mondo Topless. And in a sense, the Mondo movies have continued because there are a lot of YouTube videos that follow a not entirely dissimilar format. But Mondo Carne I watched for this project. I've got to talk about a bunch of different genres that are no longer with us. Don't need to watch it again. But it was a very, very popular film at the time it came out in the early 1960s. And they do that kind of racist, sneaky things where you can show topless women, but only if they're from native tribes. You can't show topless European women or American women in this kind of documentary. But there was always that thing going, oh, yeah, these women are topless in their tribal places, so we can show topless women there. Forsyth says, I've seen Mondo Hollywood from 67, another fun flick. Yeah. There were a lot of them. Mondo Balordo was narrated by Boris Karloff. And there was another one called Women of the World, which is not narrated by Peter Ustinov. So Mondo movies, really interesting little genre. May well be worth a video all its own. We'll see. I haven't quite nailed down the format I'm going to do. I'll either do top 10 genres that no longer exist, or I'll do a series of videos about one particular genre that no longer exists and make it a series. Haven't decided yet. I'm still writing the script for that. But yeah, Mondo Cane, I think I saw it on VHS back in the day. I know I didn't see it when it came out because I was very young. But Mondo movies were a particularly interesting little genre. So I watched Mondo Cane. Then I watched one of the movies that Imprint sent me because it seemed the thing to do. And Imprint sent me a dozen standard editions. I'll just, my previous video, this one, is about that. And I watched Wrong is Right with Sean Connery, also known as The Man with Deadly Ends, because it's a satirical movie that in some ways feels like a 2026 film. Not that anyone in 2026 would go to war for no good reason apart from oil. And this one in 1982 has that, with Sean Connery in it. Good cast: George Grizzard, Robert Conrad, Hardy Kruger, Ron Moody, Leslie Nielsen, Catherine Ross, John Saxon, Henry Silva, Dean Stockwell. So I watched that, and it still holds up, still fun. Mostly because I wanted to see whether it was as forward-looking as I thought it was, and it is. Concrete Owl's here as well, but the message got retracted. So that's pretty much what I've been watching. Let's see if I can go earlier into the letterbox and see if there's anything else I want to mention. Weirdly enough, I watched a few Dean Stockwell movies for some reason. Have I mentioned that I saw Melania? David says, Wrong is Right, it's just brilliant and funny. We have it on good DVD, so I'm not getting it. Fair enough, too. Don't know what that was, says Concrete Owl. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I've got, as I said in the video I did earlier this week, got Wrong and Right in a pressing from the Netherlands on DVD. And now I've got the Blu-ray from Imprint. Connery gets a couple of nice little speeches about the nature of news as entertainment, like infotainment. His character, Patrick Hale, talks about infotainment 20, 30 years before anybody really does in a real world context, and how network news broadcasts are there basically for the ratings and the advertising revenue. And in that sense, they very much are infotainment. Demi watched Lady in a Cage and Shattered Glass from Imprint. Yeah, Lady in a Cage I've got to watch. I haven't watched it yet. D. Lee says, German mountaineering movies from the 1910s, 1920s is an example of a bygone genre. Leni Riefenstahl made her name in them. Yeah, The Blue Light is actually getting a Blu-ray release. Concrete Owl says, the point I was trying to make with Frank Herbert was an awful person, but he's dead. Rowling also Scott Carson can still profit from patronage. I met Frank Herbert once. He seemed okay, but people's mileage may vary on that. Yeah, Rowling and also Scott Carson can still profit from the patronage, absolutely. And that's the reason why calling them out is the right thing to do. And increasingly, my metric for evaluating these things is, are they punching downwards? Are they hurting people who are vulnerable? And I know where that comes from in me. I know because of my own early life that the vulnerable are targets to a certain kind of person. And the vulnerable are people who need our help and, without being paternalistic, our protection in a society where a lot of the predatory people among us have the resources to avoid the consequences of their predation. And that is an important thing to remember. Epstein survived so long because of money and because of legal systems and because of powerful friends. Old Satan Claus is out there, Jimmy, and we've got to keep our eyes open. But I think one of the positive sides of social media and of the democratization of access to information is these guys are being called out on it a lot more. And yes, it may not always result in prosecutions and the loss of wealth. But what matters more than wealth to these people is reputation. And we can, while being careful in the sense of not hitting the wrong person with this stuff, severely damage the reputation and the cultural memory of a certain person who is a predator, whether by supporting anti-trans organizations or by direct action. We can make them pariahs. Concrete House says Herbert used to hook his kids up to polygraphs over minor transgressions and beat them when results match the expectations. Yeah, that's not good. Ralph says, love Last Boy Scout. Last Boy Scout's such an underrated movie. It's one of Bruce Willis's best for me. And have I done a video about The Last Boy Scout? If I have, it's probably time for another one. And occasionally I slip up and do more than one video about a movie. But I think The Last Boy Scout needs to be in some kind of a list of action films of the 1980s that I think it's the 1980s, might be 1990s. Let me just check because that's the kind of person I am. Do 1991, I think. Yep, 1991. Underrated little film, that one. Very quotable. That'd be a really killer double feature. If you put together The Last Boy Scout with The Nice Guys, I think as a kind of action double feature, that one would really hit. Yeah. The more I think about it, the more perfect that double feature would be. Last Boy Scout, Nice Guys with Rusty and Baby Goose. Just the perfect double feature of that kind of film. Nick Cook says the Oz cinema boom in the 80s, Malcolm with Colin Firth, the soundtrack with Penguin Cafe Orchestra blew my mind as a spotty teen in post-apocalyptic Sunderland. Yeah, Malcolm's a fun movie. It has a lot of very Melbourne-specific things in it. But who was it? Nadia Tass, I think, was the producer of that one. Really a lot of good stuff. The Australian, I mean, that's one of the things I really like about Umbrella Entertainment. They've released so many good Australian films like Money Movers and Razorback and all sorts of good Australian films. Umbrella just gave us physical media of all sorts of Australian flicks that nobody else anywhere else was really going to methodically put together. I know they did Malcolm at some stage, but I don't have a copy of it. But yeah, there are just so many smaller Australian films. But one of the things that's interesting with Umbrella is on their Facebook page, they asked for a list of Australian movies that really hadn't got a physical media release in a long time. And a lot of us put together a list for them. So maybe at some stage in some way, they're going to be opening up even more of those kind of films, whether it's through Broly, their streaming service, or whether it's through physical media. They wanted a perfect list of Australian obscurities that hadn't got any love in 30, 40 years. Concrete House says, I recently watched The Red House and Experiment in Terror, both great proto-David Lynch films. Yeah, that's one of the nice things you can do too, is to look back on the influences on heavy hitters of the modern era. And unfortunately, of course, Lynch has died, but we'll say the modern era is the 90s to the 21st century. And yeah, there are just so many movies that, whether they are or not, feel like they were precursors to Cronenberg and to Lynch and to many other people. And it's nice connecting those threads together and realizing that cinema is a continuum and that the giants of today stand on the shoulders of other giants. And that's kind of nice that they do. It's like music has influences from previous generations of music and previous musical cultures. Cinema, being a much younger medium than music, is doing that as well. Yeah, that's why they have film schools, so that people can find out the stuff that will influence their future work. And I know I've seen a number of people, particularly on YouTube, who went to film school and complained about the stuff they were made to watch. They didn't get the message that having that broad grounding in movies, which I envy in some ways, because my grounding in movies was going to grindhouse cinemas in the 70s and just seeing whatever was showing. So that's where I come from on cinema. But going to a film school would have been cool because they would have made me watch a whole bunch of films I wouldn't have watched otherwise. Peter says, watching the Kenny Everett video show, loving it. Experiment in Terror with Lee Remick and Glenn Ford. Free here on YouTube, more Hitchcock than Hitchcock. Yeah, Lee Remick, such an underrated actress. All the way from A Face in the Crowd, which the poster's there, onwards. Fantastic actress. Didn't really get recognition. But there is a song called I Love Lee Remick. Let me find it for you. I'll post a link. But there is a groovy Australian song called I Love Lee Remick. And I'll post a link. It's by the Go-Betweens. Let me just not play that, but I'll share the link. Hang on back. Get in there. Yeah, save that one for later. Concrete House says, it's great they gave Lee Remick's character more agency than was fashionable at the time. I think she would have fought for that. That's the thing. Actresses really had to fight to get more than just a stereotype in a lot of these films. It's really interesting too. There was a thing where Sydney Sweeney, there was going to be a movie about the making of Vertigo, and Sydney Sweeney was going to play Kim Novak. And Kim Novak is now 90. Put out a post or put out something in social media saying and they cancelled the project and said Sydney Sweeney would not be great to play me because her chest is too big. But yeah, I'm not that in love with Sydney Sweeney. Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell are people who may be better at their job later, but they're very, very light as far as I'm concerned as actors. And they're getting promoted for some reason. And they're getting promoted above their skill set for me in a lot of ways. Kind of like the way Chris Pratt was a decade ago. Deb says, doing a film degree in middle ages is still a move. I got to revisit a lot of things I haven't seen in years. Absolutely. What I should ideally do is find out what a film degree, what movies they're showing to film students now and just watch them. Save myself getting on a train and just watch the films. Maybe that's an idea. Damien Gee says, because it looked pretty, yeah. Which has always been the case in movies. There's always been a certain kind of actor who gets promoted because they're good looking and because they can wear clothes. I'm not trying to disparage these people particularly, but I think the hype is not matched by the taste of the sizzle is not matched by the steak. Peter says Experiment Terror has great parts for Asian American actors too. Love that. Yeah, that's like just so many Asian American actors didn't get the gigs they really needed. Like James Shigeta was great in the Crimson Komodo, Sam Fuller's movie. Never got the roles he really needed to be a star. And James Hong, he turned up in all sorts of I think he was a Universal contract player in the 60s. Turned up in a lot of tertiary roles and things like Colossus the Forbidden Project. He's in that. He's in a whole bunch of other films all through the 1960s, just as a contract player for Universal. Let me do a quick look at something because I can. By the way, super chats are still available. Wow, that's a surprise. Mary Beth Hurt died. Fantastic actress, 3-time Tony-nominated actress. She was in The World According to Garp, 6 Degrees of Separation, The Age of Innocence, whole bunch of other stuff. She was in Daryl, of all things. Boys Life 2, The Family Man, Autumn in New York. She was always an interesting actress. Forsyth says the most intense actor I've ever seen was Al Pacino. He's amazing, Glenn Ross. Yeah, I worked in a call center. Glenn Ross triggers me. It's such a toxic environment, and I worked in a number of call centers, and I find it a triggering movie. It's a very fine movie, and I like Mamet a lot, but it's not one I can rewatch. D. Lee says Anime Wong was the archetype Asian American actor and never got the career she should. Yeah, absolutely. She was something special. And there was that short-lived series called Hollywood, which was kind of an alternate universe Hollywood, where they started casting gay actors. They started casting actors from a non-Caucasian background and things. Came out about 5 years ago. And Anime Wong was one of the characters in that movie. And so I think it was Hattie McDaniel. But yeah, just so much potential there, so much human potential, so much talent potential that was pissed away by racism and pissed away by an incredibly narrow viewpoint and pissed away by movie studios who were catering to the worst people in America at the time. Racists in the South. People like that. Anti-communist hysterics. All of that stuff. If you have a look, if you compare and contrast, say, French film with American film post World War II, or even at the start of the Hays Code, France was making so much more grounded, adult-oriented movies than America could in a lot of ways. And they weren't shy of showing the reality of life in a way that American film for 30, 40 years was just too scared to do. It's a road not traveled. And there are so many Hollywood films between mid-1930s and 1970 that could have been so much more powerful had they not been held in by the guardrails of the production code. And there are movies that really, really blasted people off the screen had they not been infantilized by censorship. Deb says, it depends on the uni and the course. We did a great unit on auteur theory that questioned everything about the great man theory. Also, American culture through the lens of the Western. That's cool. With a little luck, I may get that Western box set that Imprint are putting out. I'm looking forward to that if I do. Because it's got one of my favorite Westerns in it. I've already got it on Blu-ray. But I wouldn't mind it in a box set. But yeah, what I should do, I can do this. I can find out what film courses unis are showing people and kind of curate myself a list of stuff that I should watch. And I can always still watch the trash in between, the stuff that I like and the stuff that was formative to me. I can always watch that stuff and still watch the good stuff in between. And that may well make a good video too, or a couple of good videos. I'm going to write that down. Thanks for helping out with that, Deb. Film school flicks. Concrete House says, another film we saw recently was Highlander. Nice concept, but I can see a remake doing it more justice. Hellraiser feels the same. Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to the Highlander remake with Henry Cavill. Yeah, I definitely think Russell Mulcahy, visual stylist, but I'm not sure he had the character grounding to really make Highlander work as a concept. Deb says, I'll see if I got a list of what I watched for particular units. Thank you, Deb. Ralph says, I think Winchester 73 is my favorite Western. Got a copy of that. I kind of like the renowned Westerns that Randolph Scott did with Bud Bedicker. And I like them because they're kind of au jus of Westerns. They're the distilled essence of a Western done low budget, small cast, filmed out in the Alabama hills. And they very much are low budget. Peter, thank you again, mate. Fart gun at hand. That was a good long one. That was a short one. There you go. Yeah, there's just something. Will Penny is a good Western with Charlton Heston and Donald Pleasance. That one's in the box set that Imprint are putting out, which I'm really, really looking forward to. Randolph Scott. Yeah, Ralph, we know the jokes. Damien likes those Westerns and they still stand out. Yeah, the renowned Westerns. I've got Umbrella put them out in like DVD. I've got them all on DVD. Don't have the big box set the Criterion put out. But I've got perfectly watchable DVDs of them all. Nick Cook says, Film School Flicks, Tokyo Story, seen it. Wild Strawberries, got it. Double Indemnity, seen it. The Bicycle Thieves, got it. Voyage to Italy, seen it and got it. Shane and Showgirls. That's a kind of interesting list. I've got most of those. In fact, I've got all of those. Maybe I'm already doing this stuff. Who knows? It's a possibility. Nice list. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate the help on that one. But guess what, people? We really should knock that naughty clock that says it's time to go. It goes so fast. Our time has passed, and we must end our show. So thanks a lot to everybody who's been involved in this one. It's been fun. It's been wide-ranging. We got rid of J.K. Rowling, which is good. I used that as a hook for the live stream, to be honest with you. Deb says, I do remember doing a comparative analysis of the Searchers and Serenity. Got 99% an award. Yep. Hi, Nick. Take care as well. Okay, guys, I'm going to go now and rest my throat. Deb says, I think she thinks I'm already doing it too. I could well be. It's possible. So listen, everybody, take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of your day if it's daytime for you, or get a good night's sleep. And I'll catch you next time.